Hey guys, and welcome to the new episode of Diabetic 365. And today we have a very special guest to our show. He is Patrick, a very familiar face in the diabetic community, and he is one of the guys who was on Twitter and DOC long time when the Twitter started in May, I think 2006. He was early on Twitter, and he's a very familiar face in the diabetic online community. So, hey Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how are you?
So, Patrick, tell us your story. When did you first? I know you moved to New York way back in 1980s, early in 1980s. Tell us your story. When were you first diagnosed? What was your reaction on all that stuff?
Well, I actually moved to New York from Ireland in the 90s. It was 1990 that I came over. I had been back to Ireland for a long time. I had been feeling unwell. I had lost a lot of weight, very thirsty all the time, didn't know what was wrong, was very concerned about it. And I had been home for Christmas. It would be Christmas of '92 that I had gone home. And my parents were shocked at how much weight I had lost, and they were very concerned about my health in general. And I was still urinating a lot. I can't say that I felt tired a lot of the time, but I was never sort of sickly. I was never sort of not able to get up and go to work and obviously go on vacation and see family members, but just very thirsty all the time. And I got home to New York, and in February of '93, and I had still had the symptoms, and I'm still losing weight. At that stage, I had lost 30 or 40 pounds, and I had gone to get my eyes checked. I was getting new glasses, and the doctor that I had gone to, she was in Midtown Manhattan, and as it turned out, my eyesight had gone 20/20, where I didn't need glasses anymore. And she had asked me about my symptoms, and I had said about the weight loss and the thirst, excessive thirst, and she had suggested that I had some sort of diabetes and to go get it checked. At that stage, I had been to one or two doctors, and I had gotten a couple of misdiagnoses, and even somebody at one stage had brought up the C word, that I could some form of cancer.
Cancer.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So when I found a good doctor, not an endocrinologist, but they tested my blood while I was in the office, and I was somewhere in the 300s. I wasn't terribly high, but they immediately put me on an insulin regimen. I took a shot right there in the office. I thought it was funny. I took a shot, and the good doctor made me wait there for, I think it was about 15 minutes, just to see if anything were to happen, if I were to have some sort of reaction to it, and of course I didn't. And over the next couple of weeks, I think I had gone back to him maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, and I had gained back at that stage probably maybe 5 or 7 pounds. And I remember him calling me fatty when I walked into the office. So that's how I got my initial diagnosis.
So what was your age at the time when you were first diagnosed?
I got diagnosed when I was 27.
27.
Yes. So I was not. I had no history of it in my family. I had a couple of cousins on my mother's side that had it, but nothing. I have brothers and sisters back in Ireland, and none of them suffer from it. I'm the only one. So again, that's when I got my initial diagnosis, and I got to tell you, it was. Even though I know it's a chronic disease, I was somewhat relieved that it wasn't what I thought that it was going to be when I got that first misdiagnosis. So that's how and when I got diagnosed. I was immediately put on. I'm sorry. I was going to say I was immediately put on an insulin regimen, which I stayed on till about 2002, when I went on to a Medtronic, and more recently I've changed over to an Omnipod.
Oh, okay. So you told me that you are working on Wall Street way back then and also now.
Yeah.
But so I assume that you have a very demanding job, because I also work there. Tell me, how do you balance this demanding job versus diabetes?
Well, when I was first, it's funny, when I was first diagnosed, I had just started with the company that I ended up sort of having a career with. And they were very understanding. They really didn't know a lot about it. I was told by a couple of people, well, you don't have to worry about it too much. You can control it all with diet. Diet and exercise, you'll be able to control your diabetes. They didn't really understand. But they were understanding in other ways. And, throughout my early diagnosis, I never really had any major problems. I became better almost immediately after starting to take insulin. I never had any complications. Never in the first probably 5 or 7 years. I've only ever been hospitalized twice with this, but never during my time with the company. And it never broached on my work or my ability to talk to my clients, so on and so forth. So, like I said, the people that I've worked for are very understanding, and I've never had any major issues with it, ever.
And you said you once went to an ophthalmologist to check your eyes. Did you have any kind of eye complications, or once your A1Cs went down, everything came back normal?
Yes.
Or everything? Oh, okay.
Everything came back normal, and my eyesight has been the same. My eyesight has changed very, very little in the last 15 years. Really, nothing at all. It just came back to where it should be, and it has never changed since.
So you also said your A1Cs were actually little high, like in the 8 or 9 range. How did you bring it back to 6 or 6.5 to 7?
A lot of the credit goes to the DOC. I stumbled upon the DOC about a little over 2 years ago. And prior to that, other than a couple of cousins that I have in Ireland that I rarely see, I see maybe once or twice a year if I'm lucky, and the last thing we talk about is diabetes, but I found a community online that we had a shared condition. And I had never seen that before, and not only did I find other people that had diabetes, both type 1, type 2, and LADA, but they were talking to one another. And I found this, I had, back when I was on the Medtronic, I had a couple of training sessions with one of the Medtronic people, and they would have a half a dozen people at a hotel out here in Long Island, and we would sit around for an hour or an hour and a half, and we would just, talk over our pumps and what we liked about them, what we didn't like about them. And I found that even though I only went a few times, I found that every time I went, I learned something new, either from another diabetic or from the Medtronic educator. So when I found this community online and they were talking to one another, I found it just fascinating. I found it very, very positive, and I started following some of the members of the DOC, and I would see who they were following. If I found them to be interesting, I would follow them. I moved more recently maybe onto Facebook. So I found some of their stories very encouraging, that people were having the same issues that I was having, that people were having high A1Cs in the mornings, afternoons, after meals, or whatever, but that they were able to take steps and improve their numbers. So I had seen a lot of people talk, and I had read a lot of blogs about the Omnipod, and the Medtronic wasn't really working for me. I have nothing against Medtronic. It was a fine machine that I used for several years, but I wanted to give the Omnipod a try. And I had reached out to some members of the DOC, and very, very rapidly I had gotten back some of the pros and some of the cons of using an Omnipod. Within an hour or two, I had received several emails from people that weren't even on Twitter. That's where I originally put my question out. And again, a lot of pros and a lot of cons. I decided to give Omnipod a try. I tried them. I worked with the Omnipod, I guess we'll call it educator, on bolus and basal numbers, and it just started to work for me. For some strange reason, I don't understand why the Medtronic did not. But within 4 months, I had gotten my A1C from a 8.7 down to a 6.8. Now it's bounced back a little bit in the meantime, but I've still been able to maintain it at in and around the 7 level for give or take about the past 9 months. So it was a lot of things. It was my own. I sort of wanted to become a better diabetic, and when I saw my numbers change on the Omnipod, it was very encouraging. And when I saw members of the DOC, because we would come back and we would tell one another what our A1Cs were, I always assumed that the numbers were always correct, because I know the numbers that I put up there, they're never always great. And I saw where a lot of them were getting great results. And it was encouraging. Like I said, beforehand I had tried numerous different stuff between diet and I only really started bolusing properly in the last couple of years. I always used to just guess it prior to that. So there was a lot of things. It was my change to the Omnipod, it was the DOC, and it was my own, lifting up my britches and sort of just trying to be a better diabetic.
So I'm going to come to that question regarding social networks and also Twitter or Facebook next. But before that, what are some of the pros and cons you found while using the insulin pump?
I have found very little cons about using the Omnipod. And if there is any cons, it's very, very minor stuff. It's stuff like, I'm on a conference call or I'm meeting with a client and I haven't brought my PDA with me, and I get an alert that I have to change my pod, at 9 o'clock tonight, and it'll warn me early, and the thing will start beeping, and unless I have my PDA with me, I can't turn it off. Or if I'm in line at the grocery store or just wherever I happen to be. That is a con. The pros are, it just gives me better control. The PDA is fantastic. I figure out the carbs that I'm going to have. I plug them in. It calculates where I'm at, the range that I'm supposed to be in, the amount of carbs that I'm taking, and over what period of time. And I had played around with it for a long time. I played around with it for probably 6 months between myself and my endocrinologist, and because we kept going back and tweaking the numbers, and my insulin to carb, we found out, needs to be higher in the morning than in the afternoon. So anyways, going back and forth, I have tweaked it and sort of streamlined it, so we're now, it's still never perfect. There'll still be times where I'll know that I'm going to have 30 grams of carbs. I'll know that I'm at 125 right now, and maybe because, as it actually has happened even this afternoon, this evening, where I was out and about and I was walking around, and I had to sort of fight, not really lows, but I had gone from about a 120 down to about 70 over a 20-minute period, and I knew that if I didn't do something, I would have to, take drastic action. So I had some iced tea at that stage, and it brought me back up to I think where I am right now, when I checked just before doing this, was about 123. So